Turn of the tide. The Hab bunker, once a bustling hive of imperial industry, was now a jagged wound in the landscape of Kaeros V, a ruin of shattered rockcrete and twisted, rusted barricades. It stood as the last bulwark against the relentless tide of the World Eaters, a desperate, blood-soaked line of defense. If it fell, the ammunition depot nestled in the ridge's embrace would be swallowed by the Chaos Horde, and with it, the entire Imperial flank would crumble. Sergeant Loran, his face etched with the grime of war and the grim determination of a man facing his end, gritted his teeth as he mechanically reloaded his laser gun. He had tried the Voxcaster repeatedly, pleading for reinforcements, but only static answered. 11 guardsmen, a motley crew of battered and bloody souls, stood shoulder to shoulder with him, their backs pressed against the crumbling wall, a literal physical representation of their last stand. No reinforcements were forthcoming, no retreat available, only the cold, hard reality of their impending doom. Then the tremors began. A deep, resonant thud-thud-thud echoed through the war-torn streets, a primal drumbeat signaling the approach of something massive, something terrifying. Tessin, his face contorted in a grimace as he tightened a makeshift bandage around his mangled arm, muttered, "I don't like that sound." Hasik, his laughter hollow and dry, attempted a jest. Might be the Emperor himself, finally descending from his golden throne to save our sorry hides. Loran, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, remained silent. A cold knot of dread tightened in his gut, a premonition of the horrors to come. Then they appeared, blood-red armor gleaming with malevolent intent, Chainaxes humming with the promise of carnage, their teeth whirring like swarms of angry hornets. The World Eaters came at a relentless run, their hulking forms closing the distance in mere seconds, a crimson wave crashing against the fragile shore of the Imperial line. "Open fire," Loran roared, his voice hoarse but resolute. Laser guns blazed, their beams cutting through the smoke-filled air, sizzling and spitting. The initial volley, surprisingly effective, tore chunks from ceramite. One World Eater stumbled, a smoking gash across his leg plate, slowing his charge. Another staggered, his helm sparking from a glancing hit. Private Jerrick, with a desperate cry, hurled a melter charge. The weapon impacted a berserker's chest, erupting in a white-hot blast that sheared through armor and flesh, sending the traitor tumbling. Still another, despite the gaping, smoking wound in his side, continued to charge, fueled by insane rage before finally dropping. "Weaklings! Your skulls will adorn the brass throne, mortal. Bleed for corn," one bellowed, his voice a guttural roar as they closed the final distance. Then they hit the line, a brutal, bone-shattering collision of flesh and ceramite. A World Eater, a mountain of muscle and hate, crashed into Private Vasek, his gauntleted fist caving in the man's chest with a single sickening crunch. Another, his face a mask of bestial fury, ripped Sten's throat out with a casual flick of his wrist, tossing him aside like a broken doll, a discarded plaything. Marek screamed, a raw, primal sound of agony, as a berserker grabbed his arm and ripped it free, the bones snapping like a dry twig. Blood sprayed, a crimson mist, as the traitor clubbed him to death with his own severed limb, a macabre parody of a warhammer. Loran, Hasik and Tessin, their faces pale with terror, fell back to the inner barricade, a desperate retreat to a slightly more defensible position. The lead World Eater, a brute with a snarling, demon-faced helm, his eyes burning with unholy fire, raised his chainaxe, its teeth dripping with the blood of their comrades. "Skulls for the Skull Throne!" he bellowed, his voice a guttural roar that echoed through the ruins. Then his chest detonated. A bolt round, a thunderous explosion of mass reactive energy slammed through his torso, exploding inside his ribcage, a violent, chaotic symphony of destruction. He crumpled, his axe clattering to the ground, its murderous song silenced. Another shot, another kill. A towering figure, a silhouette of obsidian against the smoke-filled sky, stepped into the bunker's entrance. His armor was abyss black, a stark contrast to the crimson tide of the World Eaters, and a trident, a weapon of brutal elegance, was slung across his back. Vicato, the Obsidian Spear. He strode forward, his bolter roaring, a thunderous counterpoint to the howling Chainaxes' boom, boom, boom. The mass-reactive rounds tore through ceramite and flesh, leaving gaping wounds in their wake. One berserker lost his head in a spray of brain matter and bone fragments. Another had his knee obliterated, his leg twisting at an unnatural angle, before a second round erased his throat, silencing his screams. 3 down in as many heartbeats. A fourth lunged for him, a desperate, reckless charge, too close for the bolter to be effective. Vicato leveled his bolter at the charging berserker, only for a whirling chainaxe to slam into it, shearing the weapon in two. Eyes burning with feral rage, the berserker swung his chainaxe for Vicato's head. Vicato ducked, the deadly arc of the weapon whistling past his ear, and in one fluid motion unslung his trident. He drove the weapon forward, its bladed tips punching through the traitor's chest plate, impaling him. With a sharp twist, he tore the corpse free, casting it aside like a discarded husk, and turned. Too slow. The last berserker, a hulking behemoth of corrupted muscle and rage, barreled into him, smashing into his midsection like a battering ram, the force of the impact sending Vicato crashing into a broken column. His trident flew from his grasp, clattering to the ground several meters away, a lonely metallic echo in the chaos. For the first time, he was unarmed, vulnerable. The World Eater loomed over him, a mountain of corrupted flesh and hate. Larger than the others, his armor was wreathed in black veins of corruption, pulsing with malevolent energy, and his chainaxe dripped with the blood of his victims, a macabre testament to his brutality. The berserker grinned, a grotesque display of sharpened teeth and twisted malice. "You will die here." Vicato exhaled, his voice calm and steady, a stark contrast to the berserker's feral rage. "You first." Then they clashed, a brutal, primal dance of death. The chainaxe came in a brutal downward arc, a whirlwind of deadly teeth. Vicato sidestepped, his movements precise and economical, trapping the berserker's wrist in a vice-like grip. He twisted, snapping the joint with a sharp pop, the sound of breaking bone a sickening counterpoint to the roar of the chainaxe. The berserker snarled, his face contorted in a mask of pain and rage, headbutting him with the force of a wrecking ball. Vicato staggered, his helm ringing. Then, with a metallic screech, his helm was ripped from his head by the enraged berserker. In response, he drove his knee into the World Eater's ribs, then struck with his fists. A rapid, brutal sequence of blows, hammering the traitor's throat, temple, and solar plexus in a blur of motion. The berserker staggered, his movements sluggish, his eyes glazed with pain. Vicato grabbed a jagged piece of rockcrete, a broken shard of the bunker wall, and with a brutal, swift motion, drove it into the exposed, corrupted joint of the berserker's neck, where the ceramite plating ended. The corrupted veins there sparked and writhed, and the berserker screamed, a sound of pure agony. He then used the rockcrete to lever the head, and with a brutal twist, severed the traitor's spinal cord. The berserker dropped, his reign of terror finally ended. Vicato, his face bruised and bloody, his breathing ragged, looked battered and close to his own end. Then the sky thundered, a deafening roar that drowned out the sounds of battle. Gunships, sleek and deadly, roared overhead, their hulls painted in the total black of the Obsidian Spears. Black-armored figures, their bolters spitting death, dropped into the fray, a tide of retribution washing over the remaining World Eaters. Vicato exhaled, rolling his shoulders, the tension slowly draining from his body. The tide has turned. Tessin groaned, clutching his ribs, his face pale and clammy. "Can we just focus on my bleeding rather than the ocean metaphors?" Vicato chuckled, a low, resonant sound. "Very well." Hasim shook his head, his eyes wide with awe. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." Loran coughed, his voice hoarse with dust and exhaustion. "Lord, I don't know what to say." He looked around at his men, at the tattered remnants of his squad. He remembered the reports, the devastating losses their regiment had suffered. "Sergeant," Vicato said, his voice carrying a weight of command, "I understand your regiment has been decimated." Loran nodded, his gaze heavy. "We're all that's left." He looked at the bodies of his fallen comrades. We buried so many today. Vaikato's gaze swept over the surviving guardsman, his expression unreadable. Then you are without a command structure. He paused, then spoke. The Obsidian Spears are always in need of capable warriors. You have proven your resilience, your courage. Come with us, join our ranks. You will find purpose and you will find vengeance. Loran hesitated, his gaze drifting to the broken laser gun in his hands. He had spent his entire life as a guardsman, a cog in the vast Imperial war machine. The strict hierarchy, the rigid protocols, it was all he knew. Was it right to abandon that? To follow an Astartes chapter, rather than the Astra Militarum? What would we be? And can we abandon the Astra Militarum like this? You will not become Astartes. That path is closed to you. You will join the mortal soldiery of the Obsidian Spears. You will fight alongside us, support our operations and share in our victories. Under the Spears, you will not be nameless. You will not be forgotten. We offer you life, purpose, and the chance to avenge your fallen. Loran hesitated, his gaze drifting to the blood-soaked ground, to the faces of his fallen comrades. He remembered the screams, the terror, the sheer overwhelming loss. The Astra Militarum, distant and uncaring, had left them to die. He looked at Hasik, then Tessin. They exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. They had lost everything, but in Vicato's offer, they saw a chance to make that loss mean something, a chance to strike back. Loran turned to Vicato, voice firm but thick with emotion. We accept. For those we lost, for the vengeance we crave, we accept. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe for more.